Guys, please watch this video to the end because we're going to go into detail about where this market is, where this market's going. A lot of people are asking, are we going to 200k BTC? Are we going to 150k? Are we going to dump and reverse here? And a lot of people are looking at this chart specifically, and you can clearly see here, we go into a bull run, 2017, all-time high. We go into a bear market, and then we hit a bottom. We went into another bull market, 2021. We went into a bear market, and now everybody is asking, how high is this cycle going to go? And where is it going to reverse? Where's the bottom going to be? So we're going to go into detail on this video, and we're going to look at it in great depth. So first of all, this chart is very deceiving. I keep seeing it going around socials. A lot of bulls are posting this chart. Now, one thing a lot of people aren't talking about, or maybe even missing, is that look when this breakout, they're comparing us where we are right now to this position back here in 2021, and it looks very similar, right? If you don't analyze it, but if you look actually where we were back here, we were way below the previous all-time high price when we started to break above the previous all-time high. So technically, the all-time high was here. Technically, you could say we are actually, well, we're actually here, right? We are actually here because when this, if we are here right now, if they're trying to say we're here, this is way above the previous all-time high of 70k. Okay, so that's something that people aren't looking at. They are not taking into consideration. We are way above the previous all-time high. Okay, and it's very, very different to where we were last cycle. Yes, the timing and seasonality is kind of similar, but yeah, in terms of where we were on the chart, we're way above that. Okay, so if you're going to compare us having this massive final rally, we would need to be back down here somewhere, right? We would need to be way back down here to have a final rally, and you could argue that we've already started that rally. So yeah, very, very misleading, so be careful with that. We are still on a buy signal on the monthly from the SMC bot, so we've still not had a sell signal from the monthly. And if we flick to the weekly, we're still on the bull run trend line on the weekly. Okay, so we're still on this bull run trend line. Every time we've come back to this level, we have decided to take longs or bought back into the market. We bought SUI down here. I think it was 0.85. It went to $5. We ended up shorting it, and you know we've been taking these trades every time we come back to support down here. We bought BTC, Solana down here. It rallied. And that's kind of how I'm trading it at the moment. I'm not really, I've already taken some profits in the pumps. I'm not really too heavy right now because we've just had this massive up only rally, right? So for now, if I was a massive BTC holder, I wouldn't really worry until I broke this trend line. So maybe you've got a million or a few million or whatever in BTC. If I had that amount personally, I wouldn't really worry until I broke this trend line. For me personally, this cycle, I had to get into altcoins. I didn't really have that FU money to get into Bitcoin. I didn't have like a few 100k to put into Bitcoin. You know, if I put 10k in Bitcoin, I was maybe going to make 50k, 60k back. And, you know, I wanted to take a little bit more risk because 50k is not really going to change my life and it's not going to help me build a massive portfolio. So obviously I've just watched altcoins go absolutely crazy in the previous cycle. So I actually allocated into altcoins, and for now it was a good decision, because they massively outperformed Bitcoin's 600% run so far, right? So far. So that's how I would trade this trend line. Clear bull run trend line. The trend is your friend until the end. Until we break this trend line, we're likely not going to go into a very savage bear market. Just be careful when we do break this trend line. The bear market does happen sometimes very, very fast, and you can see these very aggressive sell-offs, and it normally happens in the first few days. So, you know, you wake up, you're 30% down, and then you think, oh, it's just a dip, I'm going to wait, and then you wake up again and it's 30% down, and just in 2 days you can be 60% down, right? So you can go from $1 million to 400k, so you can be down 600k just in 2 days. So it's not a save free game, and you have to be careful. But that trend line is a key level for me to watch. So Solana, again, very similar. We're in kind of this weird cycle where a lot of charts are lining up, right? The BTC chart is pretty much doing what it done last cycle. Some altcoins are kind of doing what they done last cycle. We had a buy signal from the SMC bot down here, went into this rally, had this dump, relief rally, and then we went bear. Rally, dump, relief rally. And the question is now, if we really want to break away from where we are, we want to see a breakaway from this chart, right? Because it's following history exactly. And so is Bitcoin for now. We want to break out of this chart and we want to see Solana move up. And Solana does actually have an ETF, so it has something going for it. If we can push up like this and start to make blue sky breakouts, okay, this time definitely has changed and definitely is different. But for now, the charts are looking way too similar for me, okay? We can also analyze the smart money, right? So this is the smart money stablecoin balances. And we know that when we go into a bull run, they start to deploy heavily into the market. So you can see up here, coming out of a bear market, they started to buy aggressively. They were buying altcoins and just kept deploying until they'd run out of money. And then this pretty much marked the local top. This is where we started to take some profits. And then again, we came back down here almost like in a double bottom fashion. And we ended up taking some more profits down here. And we can see that they are taking profits, right? They've started the take profit phase of this bull run. But we haven't quite seen them take most of the profits, right? We can see here it really started to get aggressive as we went into the end of the year. And that's the next phase we're waiting for, right? We're waiting for the smart money to actually start taking some of their money out of the market and start to go into stable coins, which they've started to do, but not really aggressively. I mean, we did get up quite high here and then we dabbled back in. And it's very choppy, right? The smart money are traders, they're swing traders, and they buy and they sell and they buy and they sell. But overall, when you zoom out, the trend is to the upside. And I'm really interested to see when we get back up to these levels for an accumulation phase. Of course, I'm going to be looking at my other 10, 15 indicators as well, but this is great confluence when looking for a market bottom and to find out when the smart money are buying, right? Because they've nailed these cycles, and I really want to sort of be buying when they buy. When they build their portfolio is when I want to be buying, because they swing trade here and there, and sometimes they're going to get it wrong, right? We actually nailed one of these trades recently when we bought the tariff dip and the smart money were actually selling. So, you know, they're not always going to get it right. We're not always going to get it right. And, you know, it's just valuable data regardless. This is interesting. So leveraged ETF trades have reached an all-time high, okay? So we're seeing a lot of degeneracy in the market right now, and historically this is kind of what happens in a bull run. This is very normal. People get over leveraged, people use too much margin, people go and put a lot of money, more money than they can afford to lose, into meme coins, and this risk on gambling sort of trend continues to escalate and continues to get out of control, and everything's going up and up. And the average retail investor coming into the market, especially new retail, they're not trained on market cycles and market caps and how to trade and risk management especially, right? Most of them don't have any risk management. And this is very normal to see leverage increasing and froth and FOMO and just degeneracy in total. And it's at all-time highs, okay? So red flag for me. I don't really like to go too crazy or be too heavy in the market when I see these kind of signs, because it's often a red flag that you are going to go into some sort of cool down or reversal at some point or another. Now, this can continue for months and who knows, maybe even a year, right? But at some point, it does often come to an end, as you can't have everyone leverage long and winning. Investors are now buying stocks on margin at levels never seen before in history. So there's a lot of margin buying on stocks as well, and we know what happens historically with heavy margin buys. You know, again, they come down, they try to liquidate. You can't have all of this margin just printing. And I can imagine there's a lot of margin on Nvidia because it's just been going up for year after year, and that is something that uneducated retail would FOMO into and buy, just like when Bitcoin is really rallying, you get a lot of retail coming in and buying the dip. Same with meme coins. When we had the meme coin euphoria, pump fund euphoria, it was all retail coming in, right? Tons of retail flooding in, trying to make money on meme coins. And yeah, another red flag in terms of the margin side. Quinton has posted here, will there never be an altcoin season, or is this the biggest opportunity in history? Very good question, because usually these are opportunities, right? When the market is very quiet, for example, the altcoin market is very quiet and there's not really a lot of volumes and not really a lot of buys, it usually is a good time to buy. But we can clearly see that there's been a massive breakaway from Bitcoin, right? And this is what all of us, previous cyclers were expecting this cycle is for altcoins to exceed Bitcoin's movements. One of the reasons I had a big position in stacks is because last cycle Bitcoin would go up 50%, stacks would go up 300%. So there was no point in me having Bitcoin, right? I would just hold stacks and make more money because it was the L1 on stacks, the L2 on Bitcoin. And, it was going to bring utility to Bitcoin. There was a lot of institutional investment. And we haven't seen that this cycle. And I've talked about this multiple times. Bitcoin went from 50K to 100K and altcoins barely moved. And that was a massive red flag for me. And it was one of the reasons I hit my DCA out target too, is I said, guys, Bitcoin has just doubled in price and yet altcoins have barely moved. What do you think is going to happen if Bitcoin comes down and the S&P comes down, right? We can clearly see market exhaustion across the board, and you need to be, I don't say you need to be, I can't tell you what to do, but I would be very concerned, I would be very worried personally if I had a massive altcoin portfolio and I just saw Bitcoin go up $1 trillion and yet my altcoins have barely moved, right? We can clearly see that it's detached and there is market exhaustion. Again, could be an opportunity, trade it as you will. As you guys know, I've already hit my two, DCA 1 and DCA 2. I've only got DCA 3 left to sell. Okay, so moving on, same post there from Quinton. So as you know, as we were in crypto, we were buying in the bear market, so it was accumulating in the bear market, and after I had some targets like all-time high, so 70K, I took some profits, 100K was my second target to take some profits. And now what I'm doing is just trading, right? So it's a very different strategy. I'll talk about the different strategies that I'm doing. But when we go into a bear market, my main strategy, let me just make this a bit thicker. When we go into a bear market, my main strategy is to just buy on the red days, right? Accumulate the red days, just keep buying as much as I can and just load up, right? And then hold and hodl until we go into a bull market. And usually, this might change next cycle because everything seems to be changing with institutional adoption. Usually my first take profit target, so I have 3 DCA out targets, is all-time high. Why? Because historically it's a big psychological level. A lot of people take profits at all-time highs. And ironically, that so far was the top for a lot of altcoins. Many altcoins are down 70, 80, 90% from that first sell. So it was kind of lucky. I didn't know altcoins were going to do that. I was hoping Render and Casper were going to keep going to the upside. But again, why do I DCA out? Because I might be wrong. And thank God I did, because if I didn't, I would have been massively down. So that was my first DCA, and that's what my strategy is, going from a bear market into a bull run. And then I hope for Bitcoin to go and push up to 100K, and then I had a DCA out target too of 100K. Luckily, Solana did continue to go up and hit all-time highs as well. I think Solana went to like $300. So there was some assets that continued to rally. I think Sui done quite well as well, but some assets really didn't rally. Render had a little pump up to $10 or something like that. So that's my strategy. Then what I do after I've kind of hit my targets is I trade with a small amount. So I'll take trades. So when Bitcoin comes back to support levels, so it's on this bull run trend line, when it comes back to the support levels, I take little trades. Why? Because I don't know when we're going to lose the bull run trend line, and I know how fast it can fall when we go down, right? So that's kind of how I've been trading it at the moment in this cycle. So yeah, the last big trade we took was here. This is the last big trade, and I said we aren't quite. This was during the tariff sell-off, right? One of the indicators, guys, I love this cycle, is the extreme fear indicator. It's pretty much bounced every time it's come down to extreme fear, so it's crazy not to buy there. It would be absolutely beautiful if we push down to the trend line, BTC comes to support, would have huge conviction on longs and spot buys, stocks, leverage, and crypto. And you could have bought anything here. A lot of people were saying, oh, so-and-so's running, Pengu's running, Bonk's running. Guys, you could have bought Pengu, you could have bought Bonk, you could have bought Nvidia here. Nvidia's gone up double in price since here. It's up 100% since this trend line. You could have bought anything here. The key is, a lot of people say to me, oh, what about this? What about that? Well, you can't buy everything, guys, right? You can't go and buy. You could, if you wanted to. It's going to be hard to manage. You could go and buy, if you've got 100K to buy the dip, you could go and buy 100 companies. It's just, if you put in 100K into one asset on that crash and you're trying to make 100%, you've still got 200k from that move. Doesn't matter whether it doesn't matter whether you're holding Nvidia, doesn't matter whether you're holding Bonk, doesn't matter whether you're holding Pengu. You put 100k into something on the dip and it doubled in price and you hit your 2x, right? You made $100,000 in what would have been a couple of weeks, right? Or even a couple of months, very short amount of time. So you don't have to buy everything. You can't buy everything really. And you can't have regret. You can't say, oh, I wish I'd have bought Nvidia. Well, you just bought the dip and made the money on Solana or whatever you bought, Bitcoin. Maybe you took a long position on Bitcoin. You know, you can't buy everything. So yeah, it doesn't really matter what you've done. And of course, if you are trading like I am trading, I think I made around $100,000 on that move. I was happy with that 100,000, and I did expect that we were going to have a correction. I was wrong. The S&P continued to move to the upside. SUI and things actually ended up coming down, which is crazy. We're going to talk about that. But the S&P stocks and a lot of stocks continued to move to the upside. Who knew? Who can predict that? Absolutely no one. That's why we have risk management. That's why we have take profit targets. I could have been 100k in profit, and the market could have come down and reversed, right? Could have completely reversed, and I would have lost my 100k. And I don't want to put myself in that position. I want to be locking the gains in and preserving that capital as best as I can. I did definitely hit a few stop losses, and I'm currently still in a BTC short that I think gets liquidated at 115k. We're going to talk about that again. But yeah, it's only like 1.6%, I think. It's only a small amount, guys, compared to the profits that I've made recently. Okay, so let's carry on getting into this. So we've talked about this. Nvidia, the first company to hit 4 trillion. The first company to ever hit 4 trillion. We're getting some of these euphoric headlines. Nvidia has just gone up $2 trillion in a few weeks. Pretty much the size of Bitcoin's market cap in just a few weeks. Absolutely insane. We've returned to the scene of the crime, which is quite a common move, is to actually come back. You see, when we broke this trend line here, we had a sell signal from the SMC bot. And it was the first signal since the buy signal down here. So the SMC bot gave us a sell signal down. Sorry, great sell signal here as well. Sell signal on Nvidia was at 23. It came down 50%, maybe more. I think up to 60%. And then we had a buy signal around $17. And then the price just went all the way up to 152. And it's now 165. Great buy signal here as well, and I actually thought this was going to be resistance, but again, this is why I love this SMC bot. It helps you snap out of it. You know, if you are bullish and you are holding, there's nothing wrong with setting a trailing stop loss, right? You've got a buy signal from the SMC bot. If you're in a long here, I would just keep moving my stop loss up, keep moving my stop loss up, keep moving my stop loss up. And then if price does actually come down and revert, then at least you're locking in those profits, right? So technically you're in a position where you can't lose, and you're keeping yourself open to more upside. If Nvidia does go crazy here and people decide to buy at 4 trillion market cap, you could just keep moving the stop loss up, right? Keep moving the stop loss. That's what I would do personally. I already took profits way too early, guys. Okay, so next up, we've got US jobless claims. Came out lower than expected, and this is bullish and bearish. It means the economy is still strong, and if we want to see rate cuts, which a lot of people want, we don't want to see really a strong economy, right? It's counterproductive. So Powell is going to be in a tough position. Trump is trying to put pressure on him to cut rates, and the data is telling him not to cut rates. So yeah, it's kind of not what we want to see. It's very hard to trade jobless claims because you could say that it's bearish that we're not getting rate cuts, and then you could say it's bullish because the economy is strong. So it's very hard to judge. But a very good indicator going into a recession, if you have the rest of the signals. So if jobless claims are getting worse and worse, it's one of the leading indicators going into a recession. Okay, so the Great Martis, great channel. Go and follow him if you're not following him. I will say Great Martis is a Bitcoin bear, as in he doesn't like Bitcoin. He's a gold maxi. So he really doesn't believe Bitcoin is digital gold and it's going to $1 million. I love to follow people like this because it keeps me in check, right? I'm very bullish on Bitcoin. I think it's going to $1 million. And this keeps me in check and keeps me grounded. And I like to listen to their FUD. I like to listen to their reasons that Bitcoin won't make it, because they've been right about gold and this massive move, right? So why shouldn't we listen to them? And I like to listen to bulls and I like to listen to bears. Me, I'd say I'm a bit neutral. I'm a bit in the middle, and I'm aware that there's massive risks with Bitcoin, and I'm also aware that there's only 21 million, and we have huge institutional adoption, and it's in my opinion it's better than gold. You can't go and take $1 million worth of gold on a plane, but you can on Bitcoin. One of the best selling points ever, right? Especially as more and more wealthy people are starting to understand it and understand how they can move their money and transfer their money, etc. So he expects gold to break out. Now, this could go one of two ways. This is a pennant, and great pennant because it's been tapping the top, tapping the bottom. I really like it. He does really good TA, and this is a bullish pennant, right? You're coming up into the pennant. It's a bullish pennant. You would expect price to move to the upside. And notice how we haven't really seen gold move to the downside, even during this BTC run and this stock run. We haven't seen money flow from gold. And it says to me that people are still worried about this market. Gold went up, $10 trillion? The banks were putting tons of money into gold. Especially the banks were buying up loads of gold for the first time in a very long time. They actually sold a lot of their gold around $300, and they were buying at $2,300. Okay, so it really does scream that there's still a lot of concern from the institutional sectors around the US, around the US ecosystem, especially the falling dollar, right? The weakening dollar and the debt that is just scaling. The Great Mars also posted about the Nasdaq. I really like this chart as well. The Nasdaq has had a massive move. We've come into this broadening wedge, and you would expect a move back off resistance because of the move to the upside and because of the previous touch points here. You would expect a move from the Nasdaq, and it's not just the Nasdaq. The S&P is at resistance. Bitcoin is at that multi-year resistance that we've talked about over and over again. So I won't talk about it. If you want to see that, go back and flick through the BTC videos. Really nice resistance. So we are at key resistance levels. We can't deny that, guys. US housing market has reached its most unaffordable level in history. Okay, so we know that the cost of living is still high. We know that the housing market is crazy. Many people can't afford their bills. They can't afford to get a house. They can't afford to get a mortgage. And people are also struggling to sell homes, right? Okay, so both sides are having issues with the housing market. So yeah, the times are still quite hard for people out there. JP Morgan says there is a 96% chance the stock market will rise over the next 6 months. Now, JP Morgan were also calling... JP Morgan are kind of like Jim Cramer. They're kind of one down from Jim Cramer. And as I say to you guys all the time, watch what they do, not what they say, right? They were fudding Bitcoin and calling it a scam, and no one wants it, and it's used by criminals. And what were they doing? They were actually ingraining themselves into the ecosystem. They were getting into Bitcoin. They were buying it. They were trying to custody it, all while telling retail, stay away. And retail missed out on one of the biggest opportunities of their lifetime because JP Morgan didn't want people to get in before them. Okay, so don't underestimate these guys. And JP Morgan come out and said they expect a massive rally. Now, I always say watch what they do, not what they say. And JP Morgan was also calling for a recession when we were buying, right? When I posted that post saying, guys, this looks like we've come down to trend line. We're extreme fear. I'm buying this tariff FUD, right? It's come down like 25% in a few weeks. Probably going to see a bounce here. They were actually calling for a recession, much lower prices. The whole market's going to tank. Ironically, the smart money was selling at the same time as well. So it's very, very weird data because usually the smart money would do the opposite of what JP Morgan done. But a lot of people did genuinely think we were going a lot lower. Debt is up again to a record high, $36.6 trillion. It's up $410 billion in just 2 days, guys. Much more to come. So how crazy is that? The stock market is up, hitting all-time highs, and so is the debt hitting all-time highs. And I think, personally, there is a lot of worry about this big, beautiful bill because it's a massive spending bill. there's going to be more spending, and the debt is spiraling out of control. And then the interest rate, the interest that has to be paid back, is going to get higher and higher. It's already out, superseding the defense budget. Eventually, there might not be any money left. You will be paying literally just interest, right? And then the money printer comes back on, and the currency debases. It's a dangerous cycle, and someone is going to have to step in and change it. Someone is going to have to come in and change the system. And who's going to vote for someone who's saying, look, guys, we're going to have to increase taxes, you're going to have to pay more taxes, and we're going to have to cut costs, so you're not going to get all the benefits that you're used to. You're not going to get, we're going to have to downgrade schools, we're going to have to downgrade the police, you're going to have to pay more money. Like, who's going to vote for that? The people are always going to vote for someone who's going to make their lives easier, nicer schools, nicer roads. It's a very tough situation, and I hope that people do vote for a bit of pain, because you are going to have to go through some hardship. Otherwise, it's your kids that are going to suffer, right? So really, really interesting. The tariff stuff is not over. So President Trump imposes a 50% tariff on Brazil. Brazil kicked back and said they can put their tariffs up as well, so it doesn't look like they want to negotiate. We haven't had many trade deals. I think Trump said he wanted so many done in 90 days, and I think we have like 2 or 3 trade deals. There might even just be 2 trade deals. So this seems like it's going to go on for years, and trade deals are very complicated. Look how long it took to do the trade deal with the UK. It's not something that you can just do, in a few days or a week. There's a lot of back and forth and a lot of T's and C's. And, I think this is going to go on for years. I think the trade deal is going to go on for years. And I don't think people are going to be scared for years, right? I think it's the initial FUD of the tariffs that sent the market down. That's why I sort of bought the dip. And then I feel like this is going to just maybe trickle on, right? There's not going to be this massive sudden fear. And also, the economy has not been doing too bad. We do have to wait to see the knock-on from this tariff implications. And also, a lot of the tariffs won't go into August. So we're still going to have to wait many, many months. Maybe August, September, we see some data come in, but we're still going to have to wait many, many months for the August tariffs to kick in. Trump said he's not going to take those tariffs back, and he's going to roll them out. So we might have to take many months to see the data. I will say data has been relatively neutral or good, especially earnings were good. Stock market's at all-time high. Nvidia's at all-time high. A lot of stocks are rallying like crazy. Netflix has been on a massive run. Facebook's been on a massive run. But we've had neutral or good data. Be very cautious if we start to go into a bad data era and the data starts to look really bad. Because when you've had good news, everyone's over-leveraged, everyone's on margin. What happens when the data starts to come out negative, right? This is something I posted recently. Look how similar this move was on ETH. Create a breakout FOMO, liquidate all the longs, then let it run. Now, I was long on this area here on Solana. And I've, especially going into an ETF, I wanted to be long going into a Solana ETF. And then we had this massive wick down. So this is what happened in the last move. We had this massive wick down, and then they sent it to the upside. So the question is now, are they doing that exact move? Look how similar it is here. See how we just trickled sideways, flush out all the longs, so liquidate all the longs, and then send it. And the question is, are we about to send it? We have got a buy signal popping up on the SMC bot here, but it doesn't confirm for 3 days and 11 hours. So what I would do personally was I'd wait for confirmation, because we've had buy signals pop up here. What happened? The candle closed below, the candle closed below, the candle closed below, and everyone who took longs up here ended up hitting either hitting their stop loss or getting liquidated. So the question is, in 3 days and 11 hours, is this candle going to close above? We're going to see. The last time it closed above, we did get this massive move to the upside. And I do think, guys, if we close above this, we're closing above the 50-week, we're closing above the SMC weekly. It's starting to turn green now in the background. See how the bar is starting to turn green. You see how it started to turn green here. And then we had this nuke candle. I think the same thing's going to happen on ETH, okay? But I am going to wait for confirmation, which means I do take a little bit more risk, because it might close like this, and then I have to take a long here after the pump, but I probably would, because history says that on these candle closes, we're going to see some more upside. So I'd have a couple of strategies there. I obviously can't take too much leverage in case we come back and retest the SMC. So I'd have the option to either buy heavy spot, so like buy loads of spot and just try to make a 2x or something, or just try even to make 50%. Like if I put 100k in here and it does a 50% move, then I make 50k. You know, happy days. Or if you put in 1k and you make $500, whatever your strategy is, that's probably what I will look to do. And also with spot, you can't get liquidated, so I kind of like to trade with spot sometimes. You can't get liquidated, and you know, if you're wrong and it does come down here, you know, you've lost what, 10%, 15%, but you're trying to make 50, 60, 70%. So let's see where this closes, and also the sell's going to be interesting, right? So if we do get a buy here and we do have this move, I'm of course going to be quite interested, because we're in the last year of the bull run, right? I'm going to be quite interested in that sell signal from the SMC bot, because one of those final sells is going to be the end of the market, right? We're going to get that sell, and then it's going to be the bear market, and those can be really, really nice opportunities for short positions. What else we got here? Trump warned Chinese president, if China invades Taiwan, I will bomb Beijing. Absolutely crazy statements to be making, and, you know, threatening world war with China after all of the tariff stuff. We don't really have a squeaky clean macro right now. There's still a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of crazy war words being thrown around, and yeah, this is not good. This was very recent as well. I think also Trump was threatening. It's come out recently. A conversation got leaked about Trump talking about bombing Russia as well. So yeah, still a lot of crazy statements being thrown around in this space. Great post here. The professional investors continue to dump US equities. Investors sold $3.1 billion in single stocks and ETFs last week, the most since August 2024, posting the 6th largest outflow on record according to the BOFA. This also marked the biggest single stock sale since July 2023. Institutional investors led the trend, dumping $3.2 billion and recording their 9th week of selling out of the last 10. Hedge funds posted their 3rd straight weekly net sale, offloading $1 billion last week alone. And on the other hand, retail investors purchased $0.4 billion, remaining net buyers in 28 of the 30 weeks. So institutions continue to take profits. Hedge funds continue to take profits. I mean, why wouldn't you, right? Just like we've been doing, they've probably got DCA out targets. Nvidia's done a 15x, maybe even more. It might be even 17x or 18x now, which is insane, guys. Like, some of these institutions would have had $1 billion in Nvidia, and they might have made $15 billion in 2 years, in just 2 years. Of course, they're going to take profits off the table. Everything's pumping. We're in extreme greed. Everything's rallying. Of course, they are going to take profits. The gold is almost at all-time highs. A lot of people are concerned about the debt. Of course, they're taking profits. But isn't it interesting? Retail continue to buy, and retail continue to buy. And what do we know about retail? They love to buy green candles. They love to buy things that are pumping. They don't feel like things are going to come down. They feel like it's going to continue to go up. And, you know, they don't want to miss the boat. Oh, Nvidia could just keep going up. Oh, it could go to 8 trillion. Oh, I don't want to miss out. I've missed the boat, and I'm just going to buy some. And usually it's never retail who are right. It's the institutions, it's the hedge funds, and a lot of them are connected, right? A lot of them are connected people, and they know that when stocks go up 15, 100%, it can't go on forever. As the great Warren Buffett says, you know, be fearful when others are greedy. And Warren actually sold early, and I rate that. I rate that. A lot of people are fudding Warren Buffett for selling early. I'm going to tell you, I am going to sell early probably every cycle, okay? I think that's one of the best strategies, is to sell early, because if you hit your target, you've hit your target, right? If you made a 10x or 20x, you don't know what's going to happen the week after. You don't know what's going to happen the month after. You could hit 20x. You could be greedy, trying to hold for more, and all of a sudden that was the top, right? And you're down 50%. Now you're only on a 10x. So I love that. I love that he sold early, and I respect that. He took profits. He hit his target. He made a huge amount of money, and the market continued to rally. No one can time tops. No one can predict the future. So this is another thing, is the Epstein list, okay? The Trump camp came out and said, we're going to release this list, and then they didn't release it. They said there's no data, there's nothing there anymore. Elon called them out, had a lot of likes and a lot of response, and for good reason, right? Because they talked about this for so long. It was one of the main things that people were interested in. It was like, finally, we've got a government who are going to tell the truth, who are going to expose these people, and we haven't seen it, and it is disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. And Elon has come out and, he's going to use this as fuel, because he's starting his own party, and the American party, and he's taking them on, right? And this is massive uncertainty. Now we're not going to know how much interest this party is going to get, what kind of world this is going to bring, what kind of rules this is going to bring. And the markets do not like uncertainty. And what I tend to do as an investor is, I'm not really focused on, Nvidia is doing well, AI is doing well right now. I'm thinking, where's the market going to be in 3 years? What's going to be the macro in 4 years? Who's going to be in charge in 5 years? What kind of policies are they going to have in 5 years? What's the narrative? What's the tech going to be? Are they going to be back on solar? Are they going to be back on renewables? Are they going to be back on electric cars? Are they going to be rolling out robots? Like, trying to understand where we're going to be in 3 or 4 years is, because I've taken profits this cycle. I got the bear market, I took profits, I hit a lot of my targets. Where do I deploy that capital? And I need to understand the markets. This is why understanding the macro is so important, because the decisions I'm going to make in the bear market are based on things like this, right? And trying to predict what's going to happen, who's going to win, what kind of interest there's going to be. Now, 63% of Americans were angry with the Epstein decision, and that's Americans. That's not left, that's not right, that is Americans, Democrats, Republicans. It's a lot of people. So he might get a lot of interest in this campaign. Time will tell. Also, a lot of FUD for Tesla, which again can bring the stock market down if Tesla starts to underperform. And Trump has actually threatened Elon, if he keeps going on, they're gonna things can get a lot worse for him. Whatever that means, I don't know. But again, not so good for Tesla. Trump has confirmed that tariffs will begin on August the 1st with no extensions or changes today. So as mentioned, he's going to roll out more tariffs on August the 1st, and there'll be no extensions. So there'll be no 90-day extension, as we've seen before. A lot of people have been calling him a wimp for going back on some of these, and clearly he's had enough of it, and he's just going to stick with it. So yeah, we could probably be 4, 5, 6, 7 months after August the 1st until we see any of that damage data, if there is any damage data off the back of that. Professional investors continue to dump. We've already talked about this. We've already talked about that. Very valuable data. Bitcoin investors have 1.2 trillion in unrealized gains. The average unrealized profit per investor just hit a record high. So we have people over leveraged. We have froth, FOMO, margin. Smart money are taking profits, and we're still at all-time highs on unrealized gains. So people still haven't gone into that profit-taking phase on Bitcoin. So we're still yet to see that, which historically always comes at some point or another. So this tends to be where you want to be careful when unrealized gains goes into all-time highs, because people who have been sitting on their Bitcoin for a long time start to see this data and they start to think, maybe I should take some off the table. We've actually seen recently a wallet that invested 7K unlocked many billions, but one of the wallets, they invested like 7 or 8K into something, and it was worth over $1 billion. And we saw them wake up for the first time in 14 years. And we're seeing a lot of these dormant wallets start to wake up, which is something that happened last cycle as well. I remember this towards the end of last cycle. A lot of people started to position to actually take profits. And ironically, they're doing it at the same time that we're coming up to that Bitcoin resistance, which is 114, 115K, where I said we might hit a top. And it's just funny to see them doing it at the same time. So yeah, I mean, 8 billion is a lot. A lot of people said, what would 8 billion do to the market? And this is just one person as well, right? 8 billion would have an impact on the market, especially as liquidity on exchanges is at all-time lows. it has a real bad effect. When there's loads of liquidity, not so much, but when exchange liquidity is all-time lows, you would see a very drastic sell-off if that person was to sell 8 billion all at once. They probably wouldn't. They would probably dollar cost average out and slowly sell. But like Tom Lee recently said on an interview, that he expects a lot of people to start taking profits from Bitcoin because a lot of them are in huge profits. And the maxis, you really want people to sell because that's just one person, right? So let's say they've got $10 billion and Bitcoin does go to 1 million. They're going to have $100 billion. And how much did they invest? 80K? I think it was less than 80K. So they're going to turn their $80,000 investment into 100 billion. And they're going to have to try and dump this, right? Because they're not just going to hold forever. They're not going to hold to $1 trillion. And so they're going to have to sell this. And you kind of want them out. I mean, who wants them in? Who wants a bag holder that has $10 billion in one account, right? Who wants that? Because that's just going to be sell pressure. Like, get out, take your profits, and then let's start from a new floor, a new level, where, you know, the gains aren't so huge. So many people are in so many gains that have held, and you know, it's crazy, guys. It's crazy. Okay, so we've talked about that. We've talked about the Epstein list. Back in extreme greed. So extreme greed returns to the stock market for the first time this year. It's the highest it's been since March 2024. So that's actually when we hit our DCA out 1 target. So we've hit 3 targets this cycle. So DCA out 1 was March 24. And then DCA out 2 was January 25. And we still have the 3rd DCA out to do, which I don't know when it's going to be. Hopefully we see some sort of blow off top or altcoin rally and I can dump the rest of my bags. Or if we lose the bull run trend line, because right now we're on this bull run trend line, that's usually where I plan to sell. And usually altcoins are doing okay. Your altcoins have done really badly considering where BTC is, and it's still pushing all-time highs now, and altcoins are down massively. So yeah, usually that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking for another last blow off top, just like we had on these last 2 pumps, or I'm looking for a break of trend to sell my final bag into looking forward to the last part of the rally. Why haven't I sold? Well, no one can predict the top, guys, and no one can predict what's going to happen. That's why I'm just going with the data. Historically, though, this is where the market tends to reverse, right? Think how big the reversal was when we sold in March. We sold Render back in March, and it was here. Look, March 24, it was a no-brainer time to sell as well. Look at this massive parabolic move to the upside. I was actually worried that, you know, this was the bull run a little bit, because look at it. It just went up vertically. It was up like 3,000%. And I wish I'd sold more here. I definitely wish I'd sold more here. Then we had this massive short squeeze. Look. So yeah, we sold here. It was like $11.30. It went up to $12 in the end, but we sold around $11.30. And today the price is $3.37. So it's going to take a lot of money to get back up here, right? I can't believe it's been down only for like nearly 12 months now. That's crazy. It's going to take a lot of money. There's so much resistance. There's so many people who didn't sell and are scared that we are going into a bear and are probably going to sell on any pumps. It's going to be very, very hard to get up, but especially with so many new altcoins now and so many liquidity grabs, pump funds launching their token. President Trump launched a meme coin. It's just liquidity grab after liquidity grab, and it's a completely different cycle. We're not up against 3,000 coins anymore. We're up against 30 million. I don't know if it's 30 million, but it's going to be at some point. We've already talked about Tom Lee taking some profits off the table. This is the P&L chart again. So we've talked a little bit about P&L, but this is like a more detailed analytic piece of data. And here, the green has always been the best time to take profits. Pretty much went into the top of the market. Dump, orange, red, best time to buy. Green, best time to sell. Orange, red, best time to buy. And where are we now? We're in the best time to sell, best time to take profits, and the worst time to buy. And I can't wait till we get back to the orange, red. Some people have said that we're never coming back to the orange, red again. That would be the first time in history. And I'm just so used to everybody saying this time's different at the end of a bull run anyway. So I don't even absorb it anymore. I'm just, okay, mate, you do your thing. Look, if you think we're never going to have a bear market again, okay, that's fine. Do your thing. You think these indicators are never going to go orange red again, that's absolutely fine. That's a bet you're willing to place. I personally am not going to place a bet on something that's never happened before. And, you know, when you have this kind of consistent pattern, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy for many investors. And they're like, oh, right, this is where the market usually dumps. It dumps pretty bad. I'm going to de-risk. I'm going to start to move some of my $14 billion in a that's been locked away for 14 years or whatever. And you start to see all of these dormant wallets opening and starting to take profits off of the market. And I don't think it's retail that are going to get dumped on this cycle. Well, retail are actually very smart. Retail were actually selling Bitcoin. And we had a lot of companies coming in and buying Bitcoin. Retail were also buying that tariff dip. I mean, retail were just buying on regardless, right, whether we're pumping or dumping. But they were buying the tariff dip, and institutions were selling. I love this chart. Look, am I going to trade purely off this? Of course not, guys. I told you we're going to look at the smart money, all the other indicators. But I really love this chart. For trying to work out bottoms. And if you just followed this, you would have outperformed nearly everyone. If you just followed this and bought red, sold green, bought red, sold green, bought red, sold green, you would have pretty much outperformed nearly all of the experts that you see on X, right? Don't forget, 9 out of 10 people lose, and 9 out of 10 of the posts that you see on X are going to be losers, right? 9 out of 10 of all of the bull posts you see on X are losers. A lot of them didn't sell in March. A lot of them have not taken profits in the altcoin rallies. They're up 20x, 30x. And a lot of them won't take profits because that's how the space works. It's greed, right? Most humans are greedy. They don't have strategies. They don't take profits in the pumps. And most of those people bull posting are bull posting because their altcoin bags are down 60%, down 70%, down 80%. And they don't want to be down 99%. They don't want to be down 95%. Okay, so think about that and how this space works and how the game works, and don't get sucked into social media influence. It's one of the worst things about this space is there is so much up only, and it's a lot of it's fueled by people who don't want to have made a mistake, right? They didn't sell render at $12. It's now $3. You know, some altcoins are down 90%. They don't want to be wrong. They don't want to have made the mistake. This is why a dollar cost average out. In terms of strategy, we kind of stuck to the strategy. I said here, it will defo change depending on the macro. So my strategy is always going to change. You know, I posted this back in 2023. I think Bitcoin was around 20K. I was just trying to make a 20X. For now, we don't have to worry until Bitcoin reaches all-time high, and that's where I stuck to. I took some profits, hit my DCA1 at all-time high. That's when I will hopefully take some profits on anything that is hit over 10x. Okay, so that's what I was looking to do initially, just try and make a 10x. Not sure how that will be. Many things actually went to 20x, 30x. 100K is going to be a big level, and many will take profits here. I expect we surpass that by a lot. But for me, personally, it will be another level to DCA out. So do you see what I was doing there? I was saying, I think Bitcoin can go higher, but I'm going to do the Warren Buffett. I'm going to sell early because I don't want to be greedy and holding on for higher prices. Now, I was convinced that we were going to at least hit 100K, but I still took profits at 70K. Well, why did you do that if you thought it could go to 100K? I might have been wrong. Bitcoin might have topped at 65K. We did see retail was selling at 65, 70K on chain. And it might have topped and gone into a bear market. And I don't want to be that sucker who's just sat for 3 or 4 years that was up 1,000%, who didn't take any profits off the table. That's why I dollar cost average out. Now, I said it could go a lot higher than 100K. Well, why am I not holding so much up to 100K? I've got a small bag, right? I've got a small moon bag left. Because again, who knew? Who knew it was going to go to 100K? That's just what I predicted. And it did. And I still expect it to go above 100K, which we are seeing right now. I don't know how much higher it can go. I am expecting between 100K and 160K for a top. One thing that is in our favor for a potential reversal here is the long-term resistance is at 114K. So for now, my target for a top is 114K, 115K. If we break through that, I don't know how high we can go. We're in a blue sky breakout. There's no resistance. Anyone giving you targets is literally predicting. We could look at what Bitcoin done last cycle. So it done a 15x from the lows. So you could maybe argue that it could do a 15x from the lows. That's another potential target. One thing I don't think is going to happen is a lot of people are saying 160k, 150k. I don't think it's going to hit the target that everyone expects. That's kind of not how this market works. It usually does the opposite of the majority. The majority are very bullish, very long. Margin, as we've seen, is extended at the moment. So nobody knows. That's why we dollar cost average out. We don't try to be smarter than the market. We set a strategy, buy in the bear, take profits on the bull run, and we don't be greedy. And if I can do this exact strategy again. So this is what I plan to do next cycle, guys. I don't care about this FOMO and pumps, whatever. I plan to do this exact thing next cycle. If I can turn my 1 million into 10 million, I just do exactly what I've done, right? I build a portfolio in the bear market. I start to take profits at 10x. If it goes higher, I dollar cost average out more. If it goes higher, I dollar cost average out more. I'm going to sell before the final year of the bull run again. I'm not dragging most of my bag into the final year. I don't want to play a game of chicken in the final year where I'm wondering, are we going into altcoin season? Are we going into altcoin season? Because what if you're not, guys, right? What if you're not? Look where you are right now. You didn't sell here because you wanted to wait until the final year of the bull run. And what happens in the final year of the bull run? Now you're left wondering if you're going to go higher or not. You might go higher. You might go back to all-time highs, but I don't want to personally put myself in that position because I know how fast this can switch from, look, parabolic, let's go, bull run, to see you later, bear market, right? And I don't want to be in that position where I'm hoping and wondering. I would rather just be locking in my profits. Bang, we're up 10x, I'm locking in some money. Bang, we're up 20x, I'm locking in more money, right? So, yeah. I'm chilling for now. So a lot of people say, what are you doing? What are you trading? I'm just waiting, right? I've still got my moon bag. I'm just chilling at the moment. Since this buy, this was the last big trade, right? Buying that tariff dip when everyone was terrified, extreme fear. That was for me the best time to buy. Where are we now? Extreme greed, extreme margin at all-time highs. It's not for me. That's not how I don't buy stuff. I buy down here, right? I buy down here. I don't buy extreme greed and when the RSIs are completely overbought. Like that's where I short. That's where I take short positions. And the last big trade was the Bitcoin trade, right? I said TP 105k, and the price went from 88. Well, this was at 88,000. I think we started to go long even much lower than this, and it went to 105k. I did take shorts in between, so I did take shorts, hedge shorts. Sometimes I'll long and short. You might say that's crazy, but sometimes I'll short resistance and I'll say, look, if we close above a level, I'm going to keep the long open, and if we if the short wins, the short wins, right? So sometimes I'll hedge. Very, very important. This is where we bought render 0.54 in the bear market, just on a DCA into render. It's come down a lot. We're getting a lot of sideways action and finding some kind of floor. And then sold 30% of my render. So this was back March 24, right? When I said that pump, 12.30. Sold 30%. So DCA out 30%. To the USDC exit bag, I will not be spending this USDC on new altcoins solely for the exit bag. One of the mistakes I see people make, guys, so many times is they make a lot of money in crypto. So maybe they got into a meme coin, or maybe they got into an altcoin. They bought in the bear market and they made loads of money. So they turned their 1K to 10K, or they turned their 10K to 100K. And then they go and buy all these altcoins. Oh, Fart Coin's just launched. Oh, Goat Coin's just launched. Oh, there's this other coin, Quill, or all these AI coins. And most of them do this. And they end up losing all of the money that they'd spent accumulating in the bear market, right? All of the gains they'd made by holding Render, Casper, Solana, all of the gains they'd made. They go and chuck it all back into more coins, and they see these influencers on social media going, buy this. And a lot of those are paid, and a lot of them end up rugging and going down, right? So one thing I'll say is, always, that's been the best move that I've done this cycle. And I fell into that trap last cycle. It was NFTs that got me. I really thought NFTs were going to be special, and they were special for a short amount of time. And I made a lot of money, and I held a lot of the NFTs much longer than I should have. And that's one lesson I've learned. I'm not messing around this cycle. The money was going straight into my USDC bag, and it's either still in the USDC bag. I put some into real estate, and I've got a massive bag ready for the bear market, and I'm not touching that. Not to leverage trade. I'm not touching it to buy altcoins. You know, the only time I'm opening that is when we go into a bear market and the market's down and it's time to start building a portfolio. So very, very key, guys. It's very difficult to do because you make a lot of money and then you have all of this money and you start thinking, oh, I've made 10K. If I put this into, this altcoin and it does a 10X, I've got 100K. And then you end up just losing it all, right? Because the game is, you're at the end of the bull run now. You're at the end of the bull run when people are looking to exit and take profits and trying to squeeze the life out of it. You've got Trump launching meme coins, Pump Fund launching meme coins. You're at the end of the market. Here, it's a lot easier, right? When you're at the end, you got market makers trying to liquidate you too everywhere. It's so hard. It's so hard to make money towards the end. And the way I do it is if we come down to extreme fear and we come down to support, that's when I tend to buy altcoins and buy if BTC is at support, not when it's breaking all-time highs. You know, that's not the time for me. I'll take little trades maybe with discipline, like if we get buy signals from the SMC bot, I'll take little trades and I'll set a stop loss just below. But having to be very, very strict with it. So we're pretty much there, guys. I know it's been a lengthy video, but I think it's quite important, some of the things we talked about. Because a lot of people say to me, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you buying? You know, we're going higher. I'm sure we are going higher, guys. You know, this is all a part of the strategy that I'd set out in 2022, 2023. And it's not everyone's cup of tea, what I do. It's not everyone's strategy. I guess it's more of a low risk, sell early, you know, capitalize on your gains. You know, I'm not playing the degenerate game in this space when so many people lose. A post here from Alejandro. I don't think we're coming down to this price, but it just makes it very clear and simple. Buy low, sell high, keep it moving, and then you expect to buy low again. Now, this box is down to 26,000 up to 42,000. I think he's going to be very lucky to get down to some of these lows. And I think one thing we've been very good at, and one thing we have some amazing indicators for, is bottoms and catching bottoms and calling bottoms. And I think we've got even more indicators than we had last cycle, right? And I think it's going to be very hard for Bitcoin and crypto to escape us if it's bottoming, right? Because it's going to have to evade all of the indicators that have historically been so right. And I could probably do another lengthy video like this about why altcoins are going to go lower than they went last cycle. There's so many reasons, guys, why altcoins are going to get hit harder than they did last cycle. And they came down 95 to 99% last cycle. I don't even want to know where we're going in this bear market. And I think it's going to get dark. It's going to get very ugly. It's going to get very dark. And I think only a small amount of sectors and altcoins are going to rise out of the ashes going into the next cycle. And we're going to talk about those at the time. There's no point talking about them now because this market just changes so fast. So I don't think we're coming here, but the overall thesis is there, right? Buy low, take profits, wait for the pullback, wait for the bear market. Guys, none of the information in this video is financial advice. Do your own research. Investing in crypto is highly risky. You can lose all your money investing in anything. You can lose all your money investing in stocks and crypto. I am not a financial advisor, so always do your own research. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video. Drop a comment as well below. Let me know what you're doing, what you're interested in. I want to know what narratives you're interested in for next cycle, what stocks you're interested in, what altcoins you think are going to be here. What altcoins do you think are going to be here next cycle? Because I think so many are going to be gone. What altcoins do you think are going to be here and have a potential run? and also what stocks do you think is going to have potential run. If you want to get the SMC bot, or if you want to join us, you want to come into the Discord, you can head over to my X account. Here's the name of my X, and here's the link to join and get involved with us. And once you get in there, you get access to the Discord. You can see my portfolio, my trades, my setups, everything I'm doing. I do market updates as well. So I do sort of in-depth market updates, what's going on in the macro, the news, all the latest. And you get the SMC bot as well. So you can see all of these buy and sell signals on your own trading view. You don't need a paid trading view either. You can use this inside the free trading view, and it will give you these buy and sell alerts, which they are phenomenal on stocks on the weekly. Okay, I'm biased, of course. It's my bot. I created it, but I am very, very confident on this on stocks. It's good on crypto, just crypto moves a lot faster, so I have to use the 4-hourly and the daily time frames. But weekly on stocks is a lot slower, and I tend to use these signals for a weekly on the stocks. So good for stocks. It works on currencies as well. That's it for now, guys. It was a bit lengthy, but yeah, big ups if you made it to the end. And until then, I will catch you in the next one.